passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. My name is Alex Kulesh and I am of course joined by Chris O'Reilly.
Hello, Alex.
And Brian Campion.
Hello there. I'm always last. Christ. Anyway, how are you boys?
It's because you saved the best till last, Brian.
Yes, that's it. As my mother always said.
We leave the space for you to say something witty like you just did. That's why.
Yes. So what are we doing, Alex?
We are going to do the rest of the championship. So in the first podcast of the big IHF World Championship 2023 preview, we previewed groups A, B, C, and D. We talked about some fantastic players, like your favorite Korean right wing, Brian?
Young. Can't remember his first name, but he plays in Spain for Ademar Leon.
He does. And of course, all of the big teams we covered who are going to fly through the groups. But today we're going to talk about the rest of the championship. That is groups E, F, G, and H. A lot of teams in this championship that's taking place in Sweden and Poland. And it's getting very close and we're getting very excited. But for this podcast, we're going to do something slightly different. And in the last podcast, we revealed that we set up our Patreon. This is a subscription service where you can donate to this podcast on a monthly basis so that we can provide you lots and lots of content. And the first 15 minutes of this podcast, you're going to hear on your main feed. But the rest of the podcast is going to be on our Patreon. So do sign up and you'll enjoy more than just the extra podcasts that we'll provide. It'll be a handball community, the greatest English-speaking handball community in the world.
And you can feel good about the fact that you'll be funding us and to drink our tasty, tasty pints on the final weekend of the championship, which is the least you can do for all of this lovely work. So Group E, Katowice is the place to be for Germany, Serbia, Qatar, and Algeria. Is handball coming home, Alex?
I like Germany. Oh, I'm getting good feelings about Germany. What about you guys? I'm feeling something.
Dear.
I think the basis of all this enthusiasm for Germany comes down to one man, basically. And that's a man who couldn't play at the last major event because of his opinions on COVID-19. Or I've heard his mother's opinions, because basically his mother runs his life, and that's Yuri Knorr. And he is at 117 goals in the German Bundesliga. That's third top scorer. And the bits I've seen him play, especially in the game against Iceland, he was really their focal point. And I think he can inject this German team with a whole new bit of bad boy that they maybe needed. And they haven't had a bad boy in quite a while. And he's your bad boy, anti-vax bad boy, Yuri Knorr.
What a player.
All of the members of the Handball Hour, by the way, are fully vaccinated, just so to be clear about that. Anyways, But yes, what a player, though. Yes, what a player. What a goal machine. Taking a lot of their penalties now as well, so he's really become their main man.
And I think we've talked about the playmaker position for Germany for so many years that they don't have a player who can move the ball and create a bit more for the team. And I think he can do that. He's not your small, traditional kind of moving the ball playmaker that we're seeing in handball today. He's a bit of that Andy Schmidt role where he does run the game from the middle. I think he's definitely modeled his game on that in Rhein-Neckar and Leuven, and they're set up for a player like that. Question is this German team set up for that kind of playmaker?
From what I saw in the test matches against Iceland, he connected with Gola really, really well, which I think is really important. And it's exactly like you said, Andy Schmidt, we know when we think of him, it's about his amazing connection with his line players, Bjarta Myhrhall at Rhein-Neckar Leuven, the one that stands out for me over the years. And Gola and Knorr could be that one. I think Julian Kuster as well at left back, who had a great Euro last year, now playing regularly in the Bundesliga. Both he and Knorr just 22 years of age. Really exciting players at centre and left back. They have Gola as captain and Andy Wolf, who are at another, like at kind of proper world level, Champions League level. And the rest of the team looked like a solid Bundesliga team, which could work an absolute treat for a championship like this. They do look overall stronger than they have been, that like the players are playing at a better level, like club level, than German national team players have in recent years. You have a few kind of nice characters back in the team as well, like Rune Dampke, Patrick Grutzky are back in there. So yeah, all things kind of looking good for them. They beat Iceland in a test match on Sunday evening, even though from what I saw, it looked like Iceland's kind of second team because Iceland already beat them in the first test match, so they rotated a bit more. But Germany got the win, so they're feeling really confident, which means it's going to be an absolute disaster.
I don't think so. I think that this group, it's a nice group for them. There's Qatar, Serbia, and Algeria in there. Serbia, who we'll get to, are looking pretty exciting. And it's going to be a real test for them early, but I think that's a good thing. You want at least one proper game in the first round to really set things up for the main round. And, one loss, even if things go really badly, one loss in the first round, it's not all doom and gloom. I think it's a nice group for them. I think it's a team that's in good form. And yeah, I think Andy Wolf is the player that brings me more hope, because him at his best is really something special. We've seen him gain momentum in his play for Kielce, and part of that actually comes down to basically gaming, which is an interesting fact or tidbit that I learned that. For a long time, Andy Wolf, he's a big gamer. He's on Twitch. He spent a lot of time and a lot of nights gaming, and that may have impacted his performance. But he made an agreement last year with Talent Dushabayev that he would cut down on that. And suddenly, we're seeing Andy Wolf come back again. I'm not saying it's all down to that, but it's just great seeing him in great form. And yeah, I still think there's a lot of pressure on those young guys because, looking at the wider squad, it's a lot of, as he said, there's a lot of good Bundesliga players. That, are they going to have to rely on Paul Drux? Does anyone want to rely on Paul Drux?
No. No, that's a bit unfair. Paul Drux can have his... Paul Drux is one of those players, he's a bit 50-50. But I think there's one person, I think, in this German setup who I think this tournament is kind of like a defining tournament for them. And I think that actually would be Alfred Gislason. He's just coming into his third year now in this role, so he can't really rely on this whole growing pains, and he hasn't had them long enough. This is kind of his time to shine in terms of he's had them long enough at this stage. And they should know his system, they know how he works. And if they flop at this, it's hard to imagine where he would go from here, because I think this is really it's time for them to really put in a good performance and push up the rankings.
Who's going to be their defensive leader? They are missing two of the best line players and the best defenders in the world in Patrick Wiencheck and Hendrik Pekler. Neither player competing in this competition. That is a bit of a worry for me. We talked about Gola. He is a better offensive player than defensive. The line players they have, Kalbacher is again more of an attacking force. Who's there to lead that defense?
Andy Wolf.
Andy Wolf. 70% of a defense is the goalkeeper.
It is a fair point. Germany always have a big team. Like, it's never a short group of players. Like, they can throw a lot of the backcourt in there might not be the most, I'd say, technically gifted set of defenders, but like Simon Ernst, for example, he is in there purely to be a defender, right? A Leipzig player, Ernst, and put him in there alongside one of the line players, and then you have a pair of a centre block that's okay. Besides that, yeah, it's a good point, because I mean the left backs, Custer's I think a decent defender, but he's a bit like he needs to gain a few kilos. Knorr as well, Weber, they can all do a job, but they're not out and out kind of centre block players. So I think I get your point there, but maybe they'll try an approach where they're not reliant on having a big centre block, and they try to be a bit more active, and that's where they have a lot of good like number 2 defenders, even someone like Paul Drux.
And a last little mention for Luka Witzke, who will also play kind of in that playmaker position. He's been very good for Leipzig, who have been a bit of a revelation over the last. They kind of came into the season and have gone on a really great run in the Bundesliga. But Witzke, another 23-year-old who has lit it up for them. So watch out for him to kind of announce himself to the world this time around.
Another team in the group who had some good news just only about 10 minutes ago is Qatar. Their star shooter, Capote, who was originally said to be out injured for the tournament, is now actually going to be playing. So that's a big boost for Qatar, because Qatar are, of course, missing their main man, Marzo, who, if I remember correctly, Chris was a pretty big fan of. Is that right, Chris, if I remember that correctly?
Yeah, he was. I think he was.
We were all fans of.
Yeah.
He was basically the MVP of the last World Championship. He was the top scorer and just lit it up.
Yeah, amazing assist giver. I think he was a nominee or maybe the winner of the Swiss Army Knife. But yeah, does anyone know what happened with Francis Marzo? Because all I know is like news came out before the new year that he had left the team, but I didn't hear any more about why that happened. But what I do know is this is an absolute disaster for them, because part of the trio of 35-year-olds, Marzo, Capote, and Ben Ali, it could have been their swan song, but missing out on Marzo now.
But at least Capote coming back is a bit of a boost for them. But do you guys see Valero Rivera causing any upsets in this group?
I think having Capote is going to be huge. So that I was ready to write them off pretty much and just say that, okay, this isn't going to be the real Qatar at this championship. But they seem to always just get through and do something. They lost to Angola, but still made it through in the last championship. They are the Asian champions. They've continued to be a force ever since the 2015 World Championship final. That's still crazy to think. Wasn't it crazy that Qatar got to the final of the World Championship? They continue to be a force. They have an experienced team, and they're just going to do their thing and finish somewhere. I'm not excited about them.
No, yeah, they're still tipping along, aren't they? But anything to add, Brian?
No. But we do have a personal connection to Serbia with Tony Girona as their head coach. Is one man we can maybe give a bit more insight to what he's like as a coach, because we've all played under him. I think it's great for us to see Tony Girona rising up through the coaching ranks, now making it to Serbia. And from my brief conversations with some people in Serbia who are involved in handball, they all seem to like him there. I think he's a great guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how Serbia do with this, because they had, I think, only one test match so far, and they played against Sweden, and they lost by just one goal. So it does show that their level is thereabouts where it should be going into a tournament like this. So it's quite exciting for Serbian fans, I think.
Tony finally has his team, because last year at the Euro, they were another team that were completely decimated with injuries, with COVID, ending up with like 4th choice or 5th choice right backs in the team. Tupara and Milosavljevic as a goalkeeper pair, another fantastic duo that could really tear things up if things go well. The line player is very strong. Pechmelbek is in there. Wing player is very good. The backcourt, I think, is one area that maybe will struggle a little bit. Lazar Kukic is a very good player running the center of that attack, but he's not always hitting top form. So that's maybe one area that it could be a worry, but they didn't struggle to score goals against Sweden. Test matches are always difficult to prove anything, but it looks good.
I wouldn't say that the backcourt. I think Djordjic, who missed the last championship, has been tearing it up with Benfica for the last couple of years, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him at this highest level again. Again, Kukic, very good player. Then they have a 19-year-old Stefan Dodic, who is a real star. Who I don't know how much we'll see of him. Can Tony give him a chance? I think he can. A chance that Zagreb haven't really given him. The right back is the weakness. I think they're going to have to figure out something there. They do have Milos Orbovic, who's an experienced player, but he's playing in Switzerland, which Tony does not rank as a decent league. So I don't know if I'm surprised he's even in the squad.
Yeah, no, they do it. They do have players. I think it is the depth that is maybe a bit of a worry. Uroš Borjas is another interesting one there. 23 years of age. He's getting plenty of Champions League experience with Elverum, but like the wings, very strong. Like Ilic, Radivojevic in there. I think that looks quite exciting. And then Pechmelbek and Marcinic, Marcinic, every time I've seen him this season in the Bundesliga has been amazing. So they have the ingredients. Serbia they've kind of been branded as the opposite of mentality monsters in recent years. Could that be their downfall?
Like what we know about Tony is that he is very detailed as a coach. Yeah. And he's going to have a plan for definitely each team in this group stage, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a very detailed plan for their potential games in the main round. So I think that will be a big advantage for this Serbia team, who, Petar Nenadic isn't there, so they don't have him to rely on to just do some magic. They're going to be very detailed. They're going to have a very specific plan, and they're going to execute it at a really high level. Just a memory that came to mind when Tony had us as a coach, and we were, as the Irish team, we were going to play Estonia, and we were doing a video session where Tony was showing us Estonia versus Latvia. And the Latvian team had, of course, Danis Kristapans, who was just a young up-and-coming player at the time, but he was giant. He was still giant. I just remember a fellow player, Oshino Bronigon, just constantly being like, "Oh my God, that guy is huge." And Tony is just like, "No, focus on Estonia. We play Estonia. We're playing Estonia." And Oshina's just, "No, but like, look at the size of this dude." So hopefully the Serbian team has a slightly better concentration level than the Irish team did back in the day, and kind of execute this plan and, do something that we saw Slovenia do in the Women's Championship, where they had this like perfect plan which they executed in an early stage to get a big win. So I wouldn't be surprised if they really, really challenge Germany in this group stage.
I fully agree.
One team that Tony Girona will know very well would be, of course, Algeria from his time with Tunisia. So what do you guys think? Do Algeria have a result in them at all, or?
I think so. From what I remember of them at the World Championship 2 years ago, they were a dangerous team to face everyone. I think they really pushed France hard as well at the championship 2 years ago. A very French influenced team as well. A lot of players playing their club handball in France. Khalifa Gedbane is probably the big name from that team, the goalkeeper from Dinamo Bucuresti. I think they could Egypt should be the standout team from Africa. Algeria could be the standout team if things don't click for Egypt. They'll be the second best team at least.
They've been disappointing over the last. They got quite good for a while. I'd say about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, they were at a high level, and their level dropped quite drastically to an extent that they were struggling in the President's Cup or not qualifying for the championship. We're seeing Angola and Congo getting ahead of them into the championships. But they seem to have a bit more energy back. They seem to have a bit of a new generation. And I wouldn't say it's like a new generation. It's like a skip of a generation where they've kind of grown up. And I'm excited to see them in this championship.
They could do a job against Qatar. I don't know enough about either team, honestly. But I feel like there's a lot of African players in that Qatar team. They don't seem to enjoy playing against other African teams. They don't seem to enjoy playing against African teams, I would say. So yeah, there's a chance they could go through. And I reckon Serbia will win the group.
Wow.
Oh.
So let's leave it there for Group E. And
yes,
for everyone listening at home, this is where the free part ends and the Patreon fans will pick up. So if you're not subscribed to our Patreon, go over there right now. We have two different options. We have the 6 meter club and the 9 meter club, €6 and €9. And you can sign up to either one, doesn't make a difference, but we will know what type of handball player you were if you ever did play. Because, legends score from 9 meters. 6 meters, a child can score from there. So, so no pressure. But yes.
There you go.
There you go.